Hey, this is Joe with Grow It Build It, and I'm going to tell you how to grow pale purple coneflower, Echinacea Pallida. We'll go through the plant characteristics and the growing conditions for it that it prefers, and also talk about how to grow it from seed, save seeds, and just general observations. But this flower does not get nearly enough love compared to its cousin, Echinacea purpurea, which is the regular coneflower you see in gardens all across America. But let's get right into it. This is a native perennial. Its primary native range in the wild is Iowa and Illinois, south to Texas and Louisiana, with a few other states covered there as well. But it's been introduced to a lot of parts of the country and even Canada, so you can find it. But it's a short-lived perennial, so 5 years or so. This plant we're looking at here is 4 years old, and it's almost 4 feet tall. Now, the published references usually say it'll get 3 foot tall, but if you give it perfect conditions, they can often exceed those references. Now, the big difference between, the thing that makes this plant unique is the petals. It's very long, slender petals that kind of droop down almost like a skirt or a dress from the disc. And when you compare it side by side to regular purple coneflower, the difference is very obvious. One's daisy-like, the other one is unique with the long, slender petals. Now, you don't have to like pick one or the other for a garden. You can have them both because they don't bloom at the same time. Or there is an overlap, but pale purple coneflower blooms in late spring to early summer for about a month, whereas common purple coneflower is more of the midsummer to early fall blooming period. And when the breeze is blowing on these and the petals start fluttering in the wind, it's kind of hypnotic. I mean, it's just kind of neat to look at. And the fact that there's not many leaves on the stalks also, it's almost like the blooms are floating, especially if they're against a green background. Now, those little yellow dots you see on the disc there is actually pollen sticking up. Now, this is something I've mainly noticed with this plant, but as the bees pollinate it, those little yellow spots kind of work their way up to the central disc, like it keeps making new little things of pollen for them. But bees is the main pollinator I see on this plant. It's everything from the really tiny bees to the larger ones, and this plant's blooming period is unique in that for a full sun plant, there's not much else blooming at this time. So this can bridge the gap of early spring or spring flowers to midsummer flowers. If you're trying to keep something in bloom all the time, like our little backyard prairie here doesn't have a lot going on at the moment, but the pale purple coneflower is blooming. So if you have a strategy of trying to get as many pollinators to your yard, this is a good plant to have. So basically though, we've got 4 or 5 back here, so hopefully we can start bringing butterflies in by having a bigger number of these plants. But right for now in the front, we're only going to see the bees mainly though. But on the growing conditions side, so this plant likes full sun. It can do partial shade as well, and it can tolerate just about any soil as long as it drains well. Now, you don't want to put it in like a real damp soil, but anything that's medium to a total drought would be fine. It has a taproot, so once it's established, it has no problem surviving droughts. And like I said before, it's usually about 3 foot tall by 3 foot wide. The specimen you saw there is just about 4 feet, but this can do a really good job of making sure that you have color year round. I pair mine with Coreopsis, and you can see some knockout roses back there. But the leaves on this plant are also a little different from common purple coneflower in that these leaves are long and slender and fuzzy. This is a very big difference compared to Echinacea purpurea, which we can see here, which has a shorter but wider lance-shaped leaf, whereas this is twice as long and half as wide. This is what the plant looks like emerging in the spring. You can see those long, slender leaves. And then I like how these petals like reach for the sky when it's just getting started or getting ready to bloom, actually. I don't know, I just think that looks kind of neat myself. Almost like an alien in the garden. But, the bloom period is pretty long, of a month or so. And you can use this for a cut flower, for like a flower vase, if that's your thing. This can be a good one for that, as it'll live quite a long time, and heck, you could put it in a 3-foot vase with my example here anyways. But eventually the blooms will fade, and if you want to save the seed, you basically follow the same process as you do with regular purple coneflower, which I'll put a card in the top right if you want to save seeds from this plant. Now for growing it from seed, the main thing to note here is it needs a cold stratification period, and it really does need it. I've tested this and I've had horrible germination without stratifying. But planting depth on these is about 3 to 6 millimeters, so 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch deep. And you are going to want to winter sow these or cold stratify them in the fridge. And to cold stratify them in the fridge, I have a video on how to do that. It's pretty easy. I'll put a card in the top right for how to do it. But like I said, I just tested these trying to grow them, without stratifying, and I don't think I had any germinate. Maybe it took several months, but this is what a seedling looks like. You note the long slender leaves, and that's in comparison to the plant on the left, which is regular purple coneflower. So the plant on the right is the pale purple coneflower seedling. So if you want to see that, you can see the little hairs on the leaves and stalk as well. But so anyways, this is a really cool plant to grow. We do have a very detailed article on our website, growupbuilder.com, on this. So if you want to read more details, you can check it out there. But I do also grow regular purple coneflower, Echinacea purpurea, on each side of this flower in the front and throughout the backyard prairie. That allows me to have purple coneflower blooms from early June right up until almost September, especially if you practice deadheading. You will bring plenty of bees in to your yard with this plant. That's the main one I see. I do see occasional butterflies on it, but I've never seen a hummingbird, although some references say it does attract hummingbirds. Maybe I just need to have a lot more of these blooms going. I don't know. But overall, this is a really cool plant to grow. It's pretty versatile. As long as it's not in a moist spot, it should be fine, and the soil drains well. And yeah, hopefully you guys have found this useful. If so, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. You want to see more of this, we'll try to keep them coming. And you guys all have a real good day now. Thanks.